Hello, my name is Susan Rao. It is my privilege as a member of the Board of Trustees to share with you our excitement about our chancel renovation. Other trustees and staff will share more specifics about this project. Let's begin with a look at how the chancel has looked in the past. The first picture we have is from 1916. The next two are from the 1990s, followed by how the chancel area looks today. The last slide in this series is a rendering of the look following renovation. Modifications have been made over the years for various reasons. Past changes have always maintained the beauty of the chancel with the Tiffany window and the rich woodwork. This one will as well. This is also a bit of renovation project in that the doors behind the choir loft will again be accessible. The main reason for this project is to make the chancel area accessible to everyone and to comply with ADA regulations. Larry Crowley will provide additional information on that subject.
This project will greatly improve the flexibility and accessibility in the chancel. As you have seen from the pictures in the introduction, this is not the first time the church has modified the sanctuary. There will be no impact on the woodwork or on our beautiful Tiffany window. By remodeling the chancel, the church will have more area and flexibility for creative projects during worship. Later, more detail will be given on the improvements for the choir and children's areas. Ramps on each side of our worship space will make it ADA compliant for those with mobility challenges. It will also allow easier access for weddings and funerals held in our sanctuary. And a new aisle across the sanctuary will allow easier access from one side to the other.
Taking a look at our current chancel setup, I'd like to point out some aspects that I was seeking to kind of fix or help resolve in a redesigned or evolving chancel area. The first issue from my perspective has to do with the placement of the choir in the old chancel. The choir is quite a ways back, all the way in fact back to the back of the chancel, and it's very difficult for the choir sound to get forward into the congregation. We actually have to use some microphone reinforcements, which really is not ideal. It's no accident that when we have visiting choirs, they often gather up front or on the stairs, because being more forward into this space helps capture the sound of a choir, and voices are much more easily heard the more forward they are. In this current configuration, it's very difficult for choir members to hear each other. Really, I have sung with the choir from the chancel area, and one cannot hear anyone in front of them when they're singing in the choir area, and not much other than the person directly behind or people on either side. So it's kind of has the effect of feeling like you're singing all by yourself, even though you're in a choir. And that has to do with the acoustical properties of where the choir is located, how they're situated. Also, the choir or the voices are all standing on carpeting, which doesn't help for an initial reflection of sound. A harder surface like hardwood, as planned, will help bring the choral voices. So the first step for me was bringing the choir forward in a new chancel design. Also, notice how the piano has been living over here, which is quite a distance from the choir. The way we've had to get around it is by miking the piano and then sending out the sound of the piano to the choir via these choir monitors. But again, the distance between choirs and the piano sound here is difficult, and it makes it hard to use the piano in accompanying the choir often. Now, the organ console you see here is not in a typical location that we've usually had it, but since November, because we're not using the congregational space during the COVID, the organ used to sit behind this screen. And for the organist, the organ cannot really hear well the balance of parts between the organ, especially the organ up front, and the back organ sounds, and also the congregation. And so getting just even here helps the organist significantly to hear the balance of the organ and to hear the organ more like the way the congregation hears the organ. And finally, the placement of instruments to accompany the choir has often been up front here or down here, which puts all the instruments in a much more advantageous place for covering up the choir than the choir has in terms of being able to compete with the instrumental sound. It's really a wall of sound that is almost impervious to, you can't break through that from this choir area. I'd like to point out a couple of the features of the redesign. First, the chancel area, and for choir members, it's accessible for the front row of singers and for the back row of singers. It's accessible for the back platform, which has been quite enlarged to 10 feet deep to accommodate instrumentalists. Now in this rendering, we do have this fourth row of choir which is actually standing on this top platform. That's probably overflow area for a choir. We're meant to accommodate the choir in these 3 rows and have instrumentalists like brass or strings or whatever on this platform. Also, the handbells can go back here on this larger enlarged platform, which is at the same level as the hallway back there. And so the platform is accessed via these 2 doors, which have now been restored in their usage. The area in front of the platform, which has been moved significantly farther forward, this area in front of the platform is now all level, having leveled the floor about 7 inches from front to back, so that it creates a level taking into account that rake of the floor. This entire lower platform now is fully accessible, and someone in a walker or a wheelchair perhaps would come up the side aisle as usual on the west side, and then there's this aisle here that one would take across, go around between the pillar, and then up this ramp right here, and which accesses this entire lower platform. The upper back platform is accessed off that hallway. One of the aspects of the chancel redesign is that the piano can now freely move around the large platform area, be much closer to the choir, and also the organ console can do the same. It is on a platform which is on wheels, and it can wheel wherever it's needed, or it can just sit over here, which is in an advantageous place for the organist to hear the organ sound as well as the congregational sound very clearly. You'll notice we have 2 rows here of flexible seating. And so chairs can be rearranged for varying circumstances. They can be taken away for circumstances as needed. It allows for lots of flexibility for this space that is now all level here. The chancel furnishings, the pulpit has been slightly modified. The lectern, the existing lectern, and the existing communion table. All will probably have some sort of sliders on the bottom so that they can move freely without marring the surface. Additionally, there are some furnishings like the short pews that we currently have, or chairs that could go here and here for service participants, the pastors, readers, etc. Also, we may be finding a couple wooden partition, short ones, not too tall, but modesty rails here that could slide in front of the front row of the choir. I'm here in the current chancel just to point out a few aspects of the setup. We are going to be leveling the floor up front because once you get to the front pew, the floor starts raking, slanting upward. And so in order to have flexible chairs that you could point in any direction, even having them in a circle or something, then the floor would need to be level, or you'd be leaning over if you're sitting at different angles. So in order to level the floor, they're going to go straight off this level here and level the floor, which goes to about the back side of the second pillar. The new platform will be farther out than the existing one. It will come out to about here. You can see this line right here. The new platform comes out farther. And then there are two steps. And so the new platform level will be at this level. So the vast majority of the platform, up until you get to the choir riser levels, is at this level. And all the furnishings are flexibly placed: the pulpit, the lectern, the communion table. Right now I'm standing at the level of the back platform, which is going to be about 10 feet deep, and it will roll right off this platform through these restored doors right on to the back hallway. Presently, the choir has to step up these risers and then down to the hallway level. So I'm right now standing in the hallway, and that is the level at which the back platform will be. You won't step up anymore. You'll just roll right off. So this back large platform will be available for bells and for brass and stringed, any kind of instruments can go, or choir overflow. The choir is getting moved forward then quite a bit, 10 feet forward. So essentially, the old front row of the choir is the new back row of the choir. So the choir will be significantly forward, as will the pulpit and lectern in the new setup.
The Chancel Remodel project will benefit our children's ministry. So at First Church, we have a vibrant children's ministry. We want to enhance that. We want children to be a part of our congregational worship. While the children's time will still be held on the platform, the Chancel Remodel project will give them more opportunity to move about the platform. So if there are things going on like a baptism or communion, they can still be on the platform, engaged in what's happening, and not have to move to the floor, for example. We want our children to see and experience the sacraments. There's also going to be a new grace space. It'll be close to where the kids leave the sanctuary now, in the northeast corner of the sanctuary, but it'll be a place where children can stay for the worship service, they can see more of what's happening, and they can possibly move about if their little bodies need to.
But being in the back of the sanctuary is not necessarily conducive to children seeing and being a part of the worship experience. So we want to make sure that children truly feel that this is where children belong. And we know that a dynamic children's ministry is a sign or an indication of a very healthy and dynamic church. And that's who we want to be. We want to welcome children and support their involvement with our entire congregation.
Some folks might ask, why now? COVID-19 has prevented us from worshiping in person for a period of time. The scientific and medical community tell us this will continue. The trustees see this as a golden opportunity to accomplish much needed improvements in our space without interrupting in-person worship. The duration is expected to be 3 months or less. We are working with the same reliable team from Pioneer Construction that we worked with on the tower renovation. We know and trust their work. The cost for this project is approximately $450,000. There will not be a capital campaign. This is paid for through the legacy funds held under the purview of the Board of Trustees. Please join the trustees in our excitement and anticipation of new possibilities for worship that these changes will bring.